All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the April 21st, 2025 regular meeting of the Township of Montclair Planning Board. In accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting a copy of the notice on the first floor of the municipal building and by sending a copy to the newspaper designated by the township for notices. This meeting is being broadcast live on Channel 34 and is streaming live and will be available on demand on YouTube. This meeting is a quasi-judicial proceeding, meaning that the board has powers and procedures resembling a court of law, and we are obligated to objectively determine facts and draw conclusions from them in order to provide the basis of an official action. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues of what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and the decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Fire exits are on my right, which is your left, and also in the back of the room where you entered. And first up is roll call.
Mayor Baskerville.
Present.
Mr. Borshoff is excused. Mr. Campbell is excused. Mr. Graham has indicated he will be late. Mr. Ian Wally.
Here.
Councillor Lockman.
Here.
Mr. Falaise. Ms. Willis.
Here.
Mr. Neiman.
Here.
And Chair Brodock.
I'm here. All right, next up, we're going to swear in our board professionals now, so it's all done. Yes, please.
You can both raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but yourself. You got it.
I do.
I do.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have approval of the minutes from April 7th.
And I received several changes to the minutes from you, Chair Brodock. Are there any other changes?
I think I had one.
Okay.
Mr. Marshall's name was incorrectly spelled.
Oh, Mr. Marshall.
Yeah.
How could I
S-H-
have misspelled his name? Andrew Marshall.
Yeah, it's A-L-L.
Okay, all right, thank you. Oh, yes, you're right. Any other changes?
Move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Next up, we have the resolution for 182 Glenridge Avenue.
And I believe there was one slight change to that resolution that I received.
That was a semicolon, the extra semicolon.
Yep.
Either you or I had to get it, right? Yeah.
Any other changes?
Move approval as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Next is the resolution for 154 Pine Street.
Okay. And I received no changes to that resolution.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right.
Okay, that brings us to old business, application 2910, 152 High Street.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Evening.
Members of the board. Alan Trembulac appearing on behalf of...
Your microphone's on, Mr. Turnbulak?
It is.
Okay, great.
I've been trained.
Couldn't quite hear it over here, but that doesn't
It only took me
mean.
about 3 years. But, you know, it seems like the green
And
light
just
is
as
always
you're starting, I'll
on,
note
but
Mr.
it's
Falaise
not
is here.
Oh, okay.
So I'm appearing on behalf of the applicant Blacksand Investments LLC. This is a continuation of the hearing of our minor subdivision application involving property located at 152 High Street in the R1 zone district. The hearing commenced at this board's meeting on February 24th, and this was continued to today's date. As the board will recall, just by way of a brief recap, this property originally consisted of two separate tax lots, lots 6 and 7 in block 1914, which were merged by the tax assessor in 2023 to create one combined lot having a lot width of 86 feet. We filed this application to essentially demerge, if that's even a word, but to separate the properties and back into what they originally were, which was two separate buildable lots, and with the intention of constructing a new single-family home on what was originally Lot 6 on the northerly side of the property. The minimum lot width requirement in this neighborhood is 60 feet. However, as Janice Talley noted in her original planning memorandum, most of the lots in the immediate neighborhood of this property do not meet the 60-foot lot width requirement. And as you recall, at the February meeting, we presented testimony and some exhibits from our professional planner, George Williams, who confirmed what Ms. Talley said in her report regarding the fact that most of the lots in this neighborhood were substandard in terms of width. And he also noted that there was only one lot in this neighborhood in the immediate vicinity on High Street which actually met the 60-foot lot width requirement, and that all of the lots were essentially non-conforming, substandard lots in terms of width. And in fact, he pointed out that directly across the street, on the other side of High Street, the lots were even narrower, ranging from 33 feet to 42 feet in width. We adjourned the hearing at the last at the February meeting because we wanted to address some of the concerns that the board had raised regarding what this house would look like and how it would blend in to the neighborhood. And we wanted to be able to provide you with that information, and we're prepared to present that this evening. Similarly, the board suggested that the design of the house should include a front porch to, again, match or blend in with the other houses along that side of High Street. And in that regard, the board also suggested that we ought to move the house or the building envelope for the house closer to High Street to, again, match the existing setbacks, which results in, by doing so, which we're prepared to do, it triggers a variance for front yard setback because the minimum requirement is 25 feet, and we're now proposing 13.66 feet, I think it is, which again triggers a variance, but again is intended to match the prevailing setbacks along the side of the street. So we've submitted a revised site plan along with the revised engineering plans, and we've also provided photo renderings of the proposed house, which we're prepared to further modify, as you'll hear, in light of Janice's most recent planning memorandum. So I'm planning to call two witnesses tonight. My first witness is Jeremy Riback. I'm saying that correctly, a project architect. I'd ask that he be sworn.
Maybe I can mark the additional items that were submitted for the record.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
Are they in your email? Because I don't see any in the papers. Are they in your email?
Any what?
We didn't get the
Are
additional.
they in your
We
email?
didn't get
Because I
the-
don't have
yeah,
them.
We didn't get them.
You didn't get? Oh, no, they were in the previous packet.
I thought he just said
Okay,
these
I
are
thought he said there was some revised.
Yeah.
Okay, the ones that,
Yeah.
this is dated March
That one they haven't
28th.
What is the?
What
Why
she
did, when
has.
was this supposed to be heard?
got. I think it was originally listed for April 7th.
Yeah, right, and
And
so
you-
I think we had it, I think it was included in the mailings that were sent out for April 7th.
Okay, so there was nothing revised after that?
Right.
That's, okay.
Well, yeah, we have some revisions
The
that you
revisions I
haven't
got,
seen yet.
I got something today,
Okay,
Oh,
all right.
okay?
Thank
But
you.
the documents were all sent out for the April 7th meeting, and that's why on the agenda it says documents previously distributed to the board for that meeting.
yeah,
Correct.
so I went back to just the February and not the April. So
Right.
I didn't get the documents. I looked at them.
Okay.
Did you do that? Yeah.
So,
Well, we're prepared to
February,
present
yeah.
them
I was
tonight
supposed
and
to
proceed, and obviously, if the board feels you need more time, you know,
right,
we'll do whatever we need to. But
okay.
hopefully, we can address the board's concerns tonight, but we'll play it by ear, I guess, so. So, is there anything else additional we're,
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Sir, if you could say your name, spell your last name for me again?
Sure, it's Jeremy Riback, and it's R-I-B-A-C.
Jeremy?
I'm sorry?
Your first name is Jeremy?
Jeremy,
Okay,
correct.
sir, if I could ask you to stand up, please.
Sure.
And if you could raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
all right, Jeremy, would you provide the board with your educational background and professional qualifications?
Of course. I graduated from the University of Arizona with a 5-year bachelor's degree in 2014. Since then, I've worked in New York City since 2014 for over a decade.
Oh, mic's not on.
I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. Sorry about that.
Mr. Tremblay, like, you got to take those
I know, I
3
feel-
years of experience. You got to teach others now.
I'm
Use your
still-
wisdom.
In his
I'm
defense,
still-
I swear the light was on.
I think you mistakenly hit the button, so
I
I'm
apologize.
still learning.
So I graduated from the University of Arizona in 2014 with a bachelor in architecture. Since 2014, I've worked in New York City for a single architecture firm up until 2022. I was an associate project manager there for the entirety of the 10 years that I was working there. I received my architect's license in New York City in 2019 and requested reciprocity for New Jersey and received that in 2022. I am NCARB certified, and I'm also LEED AP BDNC accredited for all of the states in the United States.
Are your licenses currently in good standing?
They are.
Okay. And what is your current professional affiliation?
I'm registered architect and NCARB with Pure Force Studios, LLC.
Okay. The board accepts his qualifications as an architect?
Have you testified before?
I have.
In New Jersey?
I have, yes.
Give me 2 examples.
So I've testified in Edison, New Jersey for a new family. They were both in Edison for new single-family homes, 73,000 square foot new single-family home. 7,300, sorry.
I was like, whoa.
7,300. Yeah, 73,000 is quite a bit.
Edison
Yeah.
of all places. Okay, we'll
Yes.
accept you. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank
Can
you
I
so
just
much.
ask one question? What does NCARB mean?
NCARB is the National Accreditation Board for New Jersey. It is essentially the licensure group that we take our exams through and get accreditation through the different states.
Okay. Jeremy, are you the project architect for this application of this property?
I am.
Okay. And you prepared some photo renderings of the house that you've designed for the proposed subdivided lot, along with renderings showing the house superimposed with existing houses on the street. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Janice, are we able to bring that exhibit up on the board, the photos?
All right, let me go. I didn't prepare for that.
Sorry.
I can get,
And we still need to go back and mark those, right?
yes.
Yes.
Oh, right.
Sorry, many things trying to go on all at once here.
A9 is the revised plan prepared by, I have Mark Reme, dated March 22nd, 2025. A10 is the 3-page set of renderings received March 28th, 2025.
Get too much into that.
A11 is the planning report dated April 1st, 2025, and A12 is the engineering report dated April 16th, 2025.
If you think it's helpful, the width, you're going to give them some dimensions, and I think you can just state that they're roughly the same. Oh, okay.
It's going to take me a little bit to pull up the drive.
Yeah, but I think we need that. It's kind of the starting point.
My hotspot to work. These, yeah. You don't need to spend much time on it. Yeah, yeah, but you know, show this and show, and the difference here is just showing the trees. But you'll just explain that, and you'll see, and then you can talk about some of the details that you're showing. Which one do you want?
The photo renderings, the photo exhibit. Yeah, but after you've gone through it, then we'll talk about the revisions. You know, you can mention that we've revised this further, but this is what we presented, and then. Okay. So, I'm sorry, Janice, what was this exhibit marked? It's A10?
A10.
Okay, so, got displayed on the screen there, exhibit, well, the first sheet of exhibit A10. Can you just explain to the board what that represents?
Sure.
And you can, if you want to
Yeah, go ahead.
walk up, yeah. you
Yeah,
just
there's a
take
handheld
the
mic.
Take that handheld mic.
There's a handheld mic right on the cart there.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully it's on.
Testing. Testing.
Yep, you're
You're
good.
good.
Great. Okay. So this is the initial presentation that we had with the renderings that I'm about to go over. So this current house that we've designed, it's 2-story with a basement. and it currently has a half porch for the entry. It is 29 feet 8 inches in width and about 34 feet in height. Oh, perfect. Maybe get out of the, great. Thank you very much. So these are very preliminary renderings. They show the materiality that we're reviewing contextually for the neighborhood as a vinyl lap siding. They maintain asphalt roofing, and they also the renderings also maintain similar height characteristics to the neighboring buildings.
How does the height and the width compare to the other houses on that side of the street?
The height and the width is fairly similar. There were buildings, neighboring buildings within the direct vicinity that ranged anywhere between 25 to 30 feet, and similar in height, which was a little bit more difficult to get, but we're at the 34-foot mark, which was very similar to some of the other adjacent buildings as well, within about a 3-foot plus or minus dimension.
Okay. All right. Are you able to flip to the next page of that exhibit?
I believe so. May I?
Yes.
If you
Let's see.
just click on that
There we
second
go.
exhibit.
Okay, so explain to the board what that represents.
Sure. So this particular image represents what our proposed single-family home looks like in context next to its adjacent neighbors. The bottom photo, which I would like to start with, is specifically depicting what we're working with in terms of the trees, and how, if you would draw your attention to the picture or the image above, how we're addressing those existing trees and relocating them due to contextual and on-site conditions.
So the bottom portion of that shows the trees that we're proposing?
Correct.
Okay. And the top portion is without any trees?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
And then additionally, this second page will further help to understand the characteristics of the similarities of width and height next to the proposed buildings adjacent construction
Mr.
types.
Trembulac, did you say the bottom photo is the trees you're proposing or the trees that are existing?
The trees that we're proposing.
You're proposing those?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
In that height,
I'm sorry?
you're going to plant trees as tall as that one is there, which looks like it goes up to the second story of the new house?
Correct.
Really?
And I should say is that, so if you're referring to the height of the tree itself,
Yeah.
the height of the tree, we haven't actually selected the trees yet, so the height may vary slightly based on this. This is representational that we are proposing the trees in that current location, or that tree in that current location.
Well, it looks like it's a 20-foot tree. Is that what you're planning to plant there?
I would say that we would be looking to plant a tree that is similar in characteristics to the adjacent neighboring trees around it at the front location, similar to along the curb line.
That would appear to be, correct me if I'm wrong, a street tree that would be something that the town would plant, or that we would plant with the town's approval.
That is
Is that right?
correct.
That particular tree?
That is correct. This particular tree here is actually outside of our property line, so we would work with the town in order to have that tree planted.
So I'm looking at the picture. There's a tree that looks like it's the town tree to the right of the existing building. Are you suggesting that you're taking that tree down?
Do we have that so I can reference by chance that tree, please?
I don't get what they're doing.
This one.
I think that's another, is that the exhibit you sent me today? The tree removal plan?
Right. Okay, so to clarify that, the tree that we're referring to that we're removing is where the location of the driveway is for entrance to the garage in the rear of the proposed house, so we're relocating the tree at the front curb there for access to the driveway.
Okay, it's hard to see. The driveway is on the left-hand side then?
This
Yeah,
location
in there.
right here.
Okay,
Yes.
yep.
But isn't that new tree right in front of where the driveway is proposed?
Thank you, that was my question. You can see the car behind
Yeah.
the tree,
Yeah,
and
it's right
so.
behind the car.
So you are correct, and this image would have to be adjusted. You are correct that we would have to shift
Okay.
the tree over to propose that, yes. This one here. Okay. Can I, thank you so much. I do apologize. So this is the existing tree. It's not the proposed tree. That's my apologies. So this existing tree over here, as you had mentioned, with the car in the rear, is being relocated so that way we can create a curb cut for driveway access. This existing tree, we will work with the township to relocate or propose a new tree adjacent to the current location in that area.
I assume we would agree to provide a new street tree to be specified by the town arborist in whatever location he feels is appropriate.
Absolutely.
To replace the street tree that will be removed. Is that
Absolutely.
fair?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? When you say, I don't want to belabor this, but when you say relocated, you're saying you're taking a tree, you're taking it out, and you're replanting it. Is that correct?
So we won't necessarily relocate. We will work with the town arborist, whether we're.
Plant a new tree.
We're going to plant a new tree.
You're going to plant a new tree.
We're going to
Okay,
plant a new
thank you.
tree.
Yeah.
One, Chairman, if I may as well. Just
Please.
on the topic of this, I know was a point of discussion at the last meeting. There are currently 3 fairly large trees on the property in front of where the proposed home would be. I believe the tree removal plan indicates that 2 of those 3 trees would be removed, with 1 remaining. However, the rendering as currently shown doesn't seem to illustrate that. It only shows, appears to be 2 smaller new trees being planted in the front yard. Just so the record's clear, is that existing tree to be remaining, or are all 3 trees being removed?
You're referring to the 2 trees that are up front?
There's
So
there are 3 trees in the front
I think
yard
it's 1,
of
2,
the property
3,
currently.
that one. 1, 2.
And I don't think that they're ones that are shown in the
Yeah.
rendering,
No,
because they're
yeah.
much larger.
Yeah, they're very mature trees.
Yes. So we are proposing to, well, we're going to remove those trees, and then we're going to propose to plant new trees. So the amount of trees that have been removed, we are going to replant in same.
So all 3 trees will be removed?
All 3 trees will be removed, and we will replant 3 new trees in their stead.
Should also note that our engineer, the tree removal replacement plan is also included in his plans, and he's going to be discussing that. I think has a better handle on it. Okay. So, all right. Jeremy, have you had an opportunity to review Janice Talley's latest planning memorandum that was prepared after this exhibit was, and the revised
I have.
plans were submitted?
I have, yes.
And can you discuss the 5 or 6 planning considerations that she noted in her memo?
Certainly. So the first point that was brought up was the setback requirement, and that it should match the 13.66 feet of the adjacent 152 High Street. We will absolutely match the front setback of 13.66 feet, so they will be the same. The second point reviewed the overall size of the home and the height and its approximate square footage. There was no additional information provided. So as I kind of reviewed with this exhibit that's currently on the projector, the home itself is similar in size, and we intend on matching the characteristics of this house through materiality and its design with its direct neighbors and within the neighborhood. The width of the home, as I mentioned previously, is 29'8", and the height of the home is 34 feet, which are all very similar to the immediate adjacent homes in its direct surrounding.
Mr. Riback, what's the size of the home that you're proposing?
The square footage of the home in total, the new size that we're proposing is 2,424 estimated square feet.
Before you get there, though, the house you designed that's depicted in those photos is actually larger than that.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And you went back and reviewed it after Ms. Talley's memo.
That's correct.
So what was the square footage that, for the house that's shown on that exhibit? You know, the interior, you know.
I hope it just pops up.
Well, we lost the exhibit.
There we go. So the size of the home for this existing proposed that's shown in the exhibit is approximately 3,100 square feet.
Okay. So,
So the third story is, is living space, not an attic?
So the story above the second, which we would call the half story,
Yep.
in this exhibit, we were proposing to be a habitable half story.
That's connected with the second story apartment? Or is this a house?
It's a,
right?
it's a
Sorry,
single family home,
excuse
yeah.
me.
So it is connected by stairs. So essentially, they're stacked stairs first all the way up through to the second, or to the half story.
And did you say that the proposed house is roughly the same height as its neighbors? Because the one on the right is nowhere near as big as the new one you're proposing.
So the height of this, and you are correct. I mean, it's shown that, yes, to its direct neighbor, to my right, is much taller. To the homes that are in front of it and to the left of it, as we're looking, there's about a 3 foot plus or minus difference. There is also the house adjacent to on the property next to the smaller home, which is also similar in size to the 34-foot dimension, about plus or minus 3 or so feet.
but you're now proposing to make some modifications to those plans in light of the comments in Ms. Talley's plans, right?
That is correct.
In Ms. Talley's memorandum.
That is correct.
So one of the changes, which I think you already mentioned, was to reduce the overall size of the house to, what was it, 2,400?
Correct, yes. 2,400.
Okay, from what was 3,100?
So about 31 estimated, yes.
And in order to do that, correct me if I'm wrong, you're proposing to eliminate the half-story.
We are.
Okay.
That's correct.
And will that also result in the height of the building being reduced?
It will.
From what's shown on that exhibit?
It will. So
Are you able to tell by how much?
I couldn't give an exact dimension right now, but it would we could definitely reduce it by about 4 or 5 feet, I would say. So that way we can get it closer in height to even its direct neighboring building, but I would have to actually go through the design to confirm that.
So is that 3-4 feet, the original 3-ish foot difference based on the revised plans?
It is not. The
Okay.
3 to 4 is based on the originally submitted for what is currently shown here.
So with the removal of the half story, you're going down to be basically at par with the neighboring properties, excepting the one immediately next door, which is like a 1.5, a smaller
That is
style
correct.
of home.
Sure, yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Additionally, some of the updated changes that we have done based on the recent issuance of the memorandum is the 6-foot by full width porch of the home. And that's also what's helping us reduce the square footage. So as we see in this current exhibit, we only provide a half porch. We have adjusted this to be a full width porch, 6 feet in depth, as noted in the recent memorandum.
The full length, the full width of the house?
The full width of the house, that is
You
correct.
prepared an exhibit showing the revised front elevation with the full.
That is
width,
correct.
right? But we weren't able to get that done in time to submit it prior to tonight, but we have,
Is that what you sent to me today?
no.
Oh, okay.
It just came in even later. So, I guess
Dr. Kingo's on the way.
Okay.
Did you
I'll-
submit 365 views of the house?
I'm sorry?
Did you submit, no? So we don't know how it relates to the little house next to it, really?
I apologize, I didn't hear the question.
We don't have a view of the new house as it compares to the house next to it, the smaller house on the right.
What's there?
So, in terms of what it looks like in the front, the width hasn't changed. The overall width hasn't changed. The only thing that really is changing in terms of what we're proposing now is the adjustment to the height.
Yeah, I get
And
that.
the
I'm just
adjustment
wondering,
to the width.
what about the windows on the side? How are they viewed from the small house on the right? There must be windows on the side of the new house.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
windows on the side, we're still in the design phase, and we can easily adjust those windows so that they are not overly large, so to speak, in terms of privacy or anything of that nature.
And what's the width between the two houses?
I would have to just
Are-
double check.
Basically, how much is the new house, how far away is it from its property line? Is it 6 feet, as it should be?
So the total width between our portion, the exterior, to their portion is approximately 17 feet.
And on the other side?
Do you have the other side?
It's about the same.
Almost 40 feet? Almost 40 feet.
No.
No.
Are you
That can't
talking
be.
about- sorry, you're talking about, we're talking about for here, yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
It's roughly the same.
I think, yeah, it's roughly the same.
17.
Yeah.
Mm. Mhm.
What is roughly the same? It's what was the-
About 17 feet.
The
17.
separation between the
Right, so make
houses
sure,
on both sides.
let's make sure I had the number, 17 feet.
So,
Do you want to talk about, I just handed out, Janice, did we mark?
I marked that as A13.
Oh.
Can you discuss A13 and just tell the board what that depicts?
So Exhibit A13, which was just recently distributed tonight, has a depiction of what the proposed house looks like as it currently stands. I would say it's after the redesign of this second issuance from last meeting. What this is showing is the removal of the half-story, and it's also showing the full width, 6-foot deep porch on the ground floor.
And do you have any views of the backside of the house?
Not at this current moment. I do not have any views of the back house.
And you're building a garage in the back?
Correct.
Yeah.
What is the depth of the front porch?
The depth of the front porch is 6 feet.
Okay. The one thing, but the second floor is not set back 6 feet from the front.
It is not. The portion of the second floor that, if you're looking at the image on the right, is not set back as well, like the left side is. That does project forward about 3 feet.
In order to get that porch all the way back, then you lost the 3 feet on the inside, whatever that is, the living room or whatever?
Correct. So
Okay.
in order to get that porch that we've now brought full width, we
Yeah.
had to reduce the entirety of the front. So originally, we had a 4-foot depth porch.
Right.
So not only on that portion of the left side where we have the half, did we have to increase the depth an additional 2. But for the right side, we took the entire right portion and brought that back an additional 6 feet in order to comply with the request of the 6-foot depth porch.
Good, okay, thank you.
Excuse me, and you're also doing an addition on the back of the existing house, right?
The other house.
The 152, we are doing an addition, yes.
Okay, and you have no views of that addition that you're planning?
We do not at this current moment have any views.
Again, that, you know, I mean, this is just a subdivision application. We're trying to show you what the house would look like blending in to what people see driving down the street.
I understand that we can ask whatever we want.
Oh, yes, you
Yeah.
can. I'm just explaining why we haven't.
Within
we can give
limitation.
you a full set of
Within some
architectural
limitations.
plans for either house, really. So, I mean, the other house it doesn't require any variances. That, I don't know, we submitted for building permits on that? Yeah, building permit application's already submitted to expand the existing house. They're fully compliant.
And then I would just like to address the last 2 points in the recent memorandum, of which the tree replacement, which we've already begun to discuss, is we will absolutely comply with all of the requirements for obtaining a tree permit. We are also going to look on Montclair's website and we'll select native species of tree. Right now, we don't know what that selection is going to be, but we'll work with the township and, of course, our team internally, so that way we do choose an appropriate selection of native species. And we're also working with our neighbor to address their concerns with some of the overgrown trees that are mainly wrapping around the utility wires that are in the back, and replacing those as well.
Why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because we're proposing to eliminate 4 trees along the rear property line. And how is that, why is that, and who made that request?
Sure. So, thank you so much. So, there are 4 trees.
Are you referring to the tree removal plan?
Yeah, let's.
Do you want me to pull that up?
Oh, that would be great.
Probably
Yes,
be
please.
helpful, yes.
We haven't seen that yet, correct, right?
received today.
You received tree removal plan today, so
It's
the board has
also-
not seen this yet.
It's also in the engineer's plans that were previously submitted
Okay,
that you have, but I realize you may not have seen them. I think there are 8 sheets in there. And, you know, the engineer will review those.
okay.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
So Janice, I guess we need to mark this then.
Oh, so this is different from the one that's in the plans? Is it?
This is different. It matches, I think, the engineer's,
Should match your plan. Yeah.
this just shows the trees to be removed.
Okay, so this sheet has been amended since the plans that were submitted dated submitted on March 28th? Or is it just that sheet?
So this tree removal plan.
It's, okay, but it's
Right.
different, okay.
That's what I was gonna say, yeah. Correct.
Right.
Exactly, yes.
Do you
I
have
just
paper,
want you,
do you have paper copies of this? I'll just mark it.
I don't, you know what, I'm thinking, you know, I think I neglected to make copies of that and bring it.
All right. Well, for the
you
record,
a
we have a
paper
digital copy. It's an exhibit. We don't have paper copies.
Okay, so mark it and send it over tomorrow.
We'll
certified
submit
to
a
be a true
paper copy.
copy of what was presented tonight.
And again, you're gonna hear some of the same. I really just want, Jeremy, what I want you to talk about, if you can, is the 4 trees that are proposed to be removed at the rear property line, and what prompted, you know, the applicant to remove those trees.
So the trees in the rear of the property that are being removed, one of our neighbors came up to us. It was on I believe it was the neighbor on the right came up to us and had mentioned that there were some issues, utility line problems, the trees that were overcrowding some of those utility lines, and there was some cause for concern for those overgrown trees. So we have been in communication with the neighbor. We had mentioned that we were going to remove those trees so that way it removes any concern that they have. And we're going to replant the same number of trees that we're removing, again, all native species of trees, after the home has been built on the property, to reduce any of those concerns that they have.
So again, the point being that the removal of those trees is being done at the request of the adjoining property owner.
That is correct.
The adjoining property owner.
Correct.
Had a concern about prior incidents with limbs falling and utility lines.
That is
right?
correct.
Okay, that's really all I wanted. The engineer can talk about the tree removal and replacement
Sure.
plan in a few minutes. So I think you've addressed all the planning considerations in Ms. Talley's memo. And I think you provided what information you can about the house. So I don't have anything further from Mr. Riback.
I do have a question. I thought that you mentioned at the start there's going to be a front yard setback variance. Can you speak about that, please? Because this house looks like it's still behind. There was some discussion, I recall the last meeting, where we thought if the house were brought forward, it would line up with the other houses. So can you speak about that? I'm not sure if you covered that.
Well, I mean, I think you indicated we're prepared to move the house where Janice suggested to provide for.
Well, I guess the question is, are you applying for the variance?
Yes, yes. I mean, we're doing that. Yeah, we think it makes sense, but it certainly triggers a variance.
Are you going to provide testimony with respect to?
Our planner is not available tonight.
Oh, okay,
and,
okay. All right, well then, I think that's a major, is that the only variance?
No, the
Oh,
major
is it?
variance is for lot width.
Oh, it's for lot width, okay.
And again, we don't need that, you know, we can put, you know, we originally proposed to set the house back further. It was at the suggestion of the board that we move it closer to the street to be consistent with the prevailing setback, so that you had a consistent setback.
Well, I think that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out what we're doing now. I mean, are we going to, if the planner's not here to give testimony on 2 variances, what else can we hear tonight? Because there is another application after this, right? What else can we do that's productive now?
Well, the planner testified at the last meeting in support of the major
The
variances
width,
here,
okay,
which
we
is
have
the
it.
lot width.
Okay, okay.
We had extensive testimony and exhibits that was presented, and this, I didn't think we needed planning testimony for this because we're doing it at the request of the board, and the benefits of the variance seem to outweigh any detriments by pulling the house forward to match the existing streetscape.
Okay, so we heard that. Then do we, I mean, I think that if the house were more in line with the other houses, it would be appropriate, but I don't, if it's, you know, if there's support for that from the board, that would be okay. I don't want to kind of go at it as one person and require, I don't know.
I mean, I think that was what we were talking about during the last, the last
Yeah.
part of this hearing was that, the originally proposed house was set so far back, it seemed to interrupt the streetscape
Right.
as we looked at it. And so that was one of the things I think the board had come back and said, well, why don't you move it a little bit closer, and tell us what are the different front yard setbacks on either side. I'm not sure if they got quite that far, but
Well, I think that's when I did my analysis. That's why it was too far forward, and I suggested moving it back so it met the adjacent house. And number two, in my report, I asked that rather than make it a solid volume at that setback, because most of the houses have front yard porches, and if your front
Yes.
yard porch has a roof, that's where you measure the setback from. So I asked that they at least make that a front yard porch so that if you're asking for that variance, at least the volume matches
Okay.
what you see in that neighborhood. Now, some of them have the second story pushed back 6 feet, not all of them do. So, I mean, I asked for the second story to be pushed back 6 feet, like some of the houses, but some of the houses have the second floor flush with the first floor, so I wasn't gonna push that.
and it
See
looks
that
like what
horizontal
they're,
line right there? What is that horizontal line? The subject house is set back a few feet from that horizontal line. What does that horizontal line measure?
Are you referring?
That's the porch.
Sorry, are you referring to this line right here?
Yeah, what is that line? How many feet from that? Does that represent what the average setback is of the other two houses, the one on the left and one on the right?
That is correct.
No, no, it's not. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's not, the setback is measured where the porch is, because it's a covered porch. Not that's where the bulk of the house starts.
Janice, even though that porch on the existing house is totally enclosed and it looks like it's just a regular,
That's right, you measure the setback from the front of the porch, not.
from the front of the porch?
Right, from the
From
front
the
of the
wall of the
porch.
house, yeah.
The setback is from the porch, the front corner of the porch.
Oh, I see it. There's a
As long as the
plan.
porch has a roof over it, that's where your front yard setback is measured from.
so the street side of the porch.
Right, right.
Does that make sense?
No, maybe I'm just being dense here. So if you look at the existing house, it looks like it's just, well, maybe, is it one flush wall?
It is.
That one,
But
yeah.
yet you measure from inside, so to speak?
No, you
Oh,
measure
for the-
from the
From the flush wall?
front of the house.
Okay, all right.
They enclosed the porch on that.
Yeah, so it's
720.
no longer considered a porch, more or
Right,
less.
but
Yeah, okay.
most of the houses on that.
I know, have porches.
Right.
Yeah, okay, got it.
And I just want to make sure that you're measuring the setback from the front of the porch.
And from the applicant's point of view, we're willing to set back the house whatever distance the board wants.
50 feet
You know.
or whatever.
There's a,
50?
And just to clarify for your point, those are actually dimension strings. I apologize, I just couldn't see them on
Okay.
on the screen there.
there's a plan, it's actually a grading and stormwater plan. It's dated 1/10/2025. I think that plan actually shows the conditions of the adjoining houses. It has the porches laid out. It actually does a pretty good job of illustrating that setback. But it's not, the intent was, I guess, for grading, but I think it's the most representative one I've seen of what's going to be built.
I just lost it. It was a good.
The engineer is going to testify.
Oh, okay, so, all right, so then, when we have that up, we could actually see the relationship. Okay.
Mr. Anu, you had expressed a concern, I think, that you wanted your planning testimony, but I think you have two ways of dealing with that issue tonight, even without the applicant having a planner.
Is your microphone on, Mr. Bowling?
There we go. All right. Number one, you have your board planner, and you could elicit testimony from her. And further, you have both an engineer and architect who can provide planning testimony. They can't provide professional planning testimony, such as, redevelopment plans, but they can provide planning testimony as it would relate to an application such as this. So I think you can get there either one of two ways. And actually, a third way, frankly, is that the idea of expert testimony, it's beyond the ken of the average person, I don't think that there'd be anything here that would be too sophisticated that you as a board can't say commonsensically positioning the house here or there for the reasons set forth already makes sense. So,
Thank you.
Any one of those ways.
Good. I guess, from that standpoint, if we could just look at it, I just want to look at it.
Look at it what way?
Well, I think the plan that we're going to see has, that the engineer is going to show the front porch of the house on the right and the front porch of the house on the left. And by comparing those two, we could see where the position of the front porch of the subject house could be. Because I think that this one doesn't represent the porch on the right. It's represented differently on the plan than I'm seeing now, so.
Well, I think this is the question. I'm having a hard time seeing the exhibit from here. And so maybe we need to step up and take a look at it.
Well, the yellow part, on the left house, I see a front porch there. On the right, I see the house. But I think there's also another porch that's not shown on that plan. So I guess what I would like is a plan that is accurate that we can look at.
I think you're going to see
Okay,
that from
all
the
right.
engineer's plan.
All right.
But does the engineer's plan have the revised location of the proposed house?
No.
I don't believe
No.
so.
Okay, so it'll be close?
Well, it's going to... 13.
I mean, it was how much, a foot?
It's just another foot.
A foot, so,
It-
so what we're gonna see in what we think the engineer's plans are gonna show is that the foot may be, the house may be 1 foot closer to the street than what they're
Right.
proposing now.
Right, well, yes, their plan showed it at 12.38 feet. I suggested moving it back to 13.66 to exactly match what's the adjacent, so that's the difference. They'll have to come
Okay.
back with revised plans, pushing it back another foot.
Other questions from the board for the architect?
Okay.
Any questions from the public for this witness about his testimony tonight? I see none.
Okay. My next witness is Mark Reme. There you go. He's going to swear you in.
Sir, just state your name, spell your last name, please.
Yeah, it's Mark Reme, R-E-M-E.
Remy, if you could stand, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Mark, would you begin by providing your educational background and professional qualifications?
Sure. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering from New Jersey Institute of Technology. I received my New Jersey PE license in 2005. I've worked for various firms doing civil site planning work, testimony over the years. I've had my own firm for 8 years. I'm licensed again, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, other states south. And I've done plenty of, professional testimony throughout New Jersey.
Before planning boards and...
Before planning and zoning boards,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
And your license current?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay.
okay.
And you're presenting him as an expert in civil engineering?
Yes,
Yes.
We'll accept him.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so Mark, you prepared an original grading and stormwater management plan for this subdivision back in January of this year, correct?
That's correct.
And then you recently revised those plans.
Right, based on the original engineer's letter and some of the other comments that were received at the prior meeting, we kind of increased the breadth of our plans, right? So we included some additional exhibits and things as well.
All right, can you, review those plans for the board tonight, and particularly, and try to address, if you can, the issues that were the board previously raised? Janice, should we show these on the...
Yeah.
Yeah, I can go through them
That'd
that
be
way.
helpful.
Yeah. All right, so we submitted a set of drawings consisting of 8 sheets, right? First sheet, which again is a little bit out of order here. I don't know if there's an easy way to rotate this.
Oh, did you just,
Yeah, the first sheet is fine. Oh, I see, down the bottom. Yeah. Yeah, I can zoom in and out as needed, but let me go to the first page, actually. Oh, that had the architect's drawing. Oh, I see what I'm doing. I apologize.
I didn't download these,
I do have paper copies if it's easier. So I'll use these arrows to flip through the sheets instead of that, because that goes to, I think, the next file, which is what I was doing wrong.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, thank you. There we go, okay. So the first sheet is a site plan, right, showing the proposed conditions on both of the lots. This drawing has kind of been updated to show the setbacks. I think you had a question
Yeah,
with
this is it.
respect to the
Yeah, could you make that a little bit bigger?
the existing porch, which we kind of show here in the hatched area.
Can you make that a little bigger?
Yeah, we can zoom in.
Possible?
So now you can see that the house that you're proposing lines up with the front porch essentially lines up with the front porch on the left, right? Yeah.
Which sheet is this?
This is sheet 1
Okay.
of our set. So yeah, you can see the existing front porch on the lot to the left.
Okay.
Basically in line with the front porch here. I know there was a comment from the planner to push this back a little bit, which we will do, but they're basically going to be in line.
Yeah.
Okay, and then on the right, it's a little bit in front of the other one on the right?
It is right now, but that'll again be adjusted
be
based on the
set back,
comments
okay.
that
All right.
we received from the planner. So this will be adjusted to
Excellent.
show that. I know there was some conversation with respect to the trees as well. Let me see if I can zoom back out here. So this plan also does show the trees being removed. It's kind of hard to see at the scale and on the screen, but we do show the 3 trees along the back that are going to be removed. They're currently in conflict with the power lines that run through the rear of the property. So they're going to be removed and replanted farther into the property to not conflict with the power lines. There's also several trees in the front. There is a tree that conflicts with the proposed location of the driveway. That tree is going to be removed and replanted off more to the center of the property with a new tree, again, as directed by the town, arborist or whoever. We'll work with them to kind of, figure out what type of tree to go in there. We also just have a utilities plan. Well, this is the existing conditions plan. It's just a copy of the existing survey. We included that as well, just so you can kind of see what exists now, where some of the utilities run. We have a proposed utilities plan. I know there were some questions from the board engineer with respect to where the utilities were going to be run on the property. So this plan basically highlights that, as well as the drainage characteristics, the location of the existing utilities, locations of the meters, and so forth. We also have a stormwater management plan. I know there were some comments again from the township engineer or the board engineer, which we will address those comments as well. We read through the review letter and we can comply with all of those comments. I actually did some preliminary calculations and we can address all your concerns as well. But this plan shows those improvements as well. The idea is to take the increase in the impervious runoff from the proposed development, place it into some underground storage with recharge. We did some preliminary calculations or analysis on the soils in the area, so we know we can recharge about 3 inches per hour, a little bit less than that. But, we can address those comments. We've also included a soil erosion and sediment control plan because we know we're going to have to, apply to that outside agency. So those details and plans are included in this set as well.
All right, and you already indicated that you're confident that you can comply with Mr. Hernandez's.
Yeah, I know Mr.
comment.
Hernandez had some questions about the utilities, whether or not easements will be required. There's some discussion now about running the electric coming off the pole line in the back of the property underground to the meters. I think the owner has reached out to PSE&G, has not heard back from them yet, but that's kind of the idea. If easements are needed for that, we will certainly show those on the drawings. And again, with respect to drainage, I believe we can meet all your comments as well.
Sorry, are you planning, if you can, underground on both houses?
I believe that is correct. Yes, both houses.
If possible.
Yeah, if possible. Right now, they kind of cut across the property. You can kind of see the power going to this lot. They come off the two poles. The idea is to kind of just run it down along the edge of the property underground to the meter on the side of the houses.
Mr. Chairman, just in the event that undergrounds can't be provided, is there any concern with conflicts with the garage roof?
So for basically, the way that we have this set up now is the meters will be on the north side of the houses on both sides. The intent would be to relocate the overhead lines away from the garage. So they would kind of come more parallel to the property line on the northern side of the properties on each of the lots. So they would come off here and run into the side, same thing here, and into the side. So they would not conflict with the garage.
Okay, so the plans either way would be updated to
Yeah, they would be,
Okay.
depending on what we get back from PSE&G, we would update the plans to show accordingly, whether it's underground or overhead.
Okay, and I believe earlier, the architect had testified, indicating that, I believe 4 trees would be removed along the back property line due to the utility conflicts.
I believe the original drawing we had showed 3 at the rear. We can readdress, take a look and see.
I
if
just
there
want,
was any
for the record, to
additional-
be clear, how many
Yeah,
trees in fact are being removed.
if it's found that additional trees, because if you look at the drawing again, maybe I can zoom in a little bit here to make it easier. You can kind of see where the overhead line runs, right? There's 1, 2, 3 trees that are kind of there. However, these trees are very close. If we find that these trees are in conflict with the lines, we can, request to remove those and then plant an additional tree appropriately.
And will those be a 1-for-1 replacement?
1-for-1 replacement, that's the intent, yes.
And your sheet 1 showing those replacement trees just kind of in between the V formed by the 2 overhead wires? Is that, I mean, that just, to me, it seems like that's going to conflict in that location as well.
Let me bring up that plan.
Yeah, I believe it's the one towards the bottom of the screen there.
This is it, I'll zoom back in. So again, well, there's an existing pole here, so whether the service is, if the service is overhead, it would come from this pole down along parallel to the property line. These trees would be planted in such a way that they wouldn't conflict. We would look to PSE&G for the recommendations on how far away they want those trees from their lines.
Okay, so
But
you've
the
got
idea is 1-for-1.
1-for-1 for those 3, and then there's, what, 4 more that are coming out in the front of the property? And where will those be planted?
So there's a tree in the center of the property that will be removed. There's 2 trees here that conflict with the sidewalk. We discussed this a little bit, Jeremy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we plan on adding, these 2 trees will be removed. We're going to add a tree here and here in the front yard as well to replace those trees.
So 2 in the front,
Yeah.
and then the last 2 are going,
Right, so we're removing this one, we're planting it here, and then we'll remove these 2 trees that conflict with the sidewalk, and then we'll plant 2 additional trees in the front yard.
And then you have to do a new street tree because you removed.
Yeah, and that's not inclusive of the street tree, which you can see at the bottom of the screen, right? There's the existing street tree in the driveway. That will be replanted here as well.
So that existing 24-inch tree to the right will remain?
This tree, yes, that will stay.
That will stay.
Correct.
and there's no stormwater facilities right in that area?
No, there's not. So there was some discussion about, right, the dry wells, the volume that's required for the storage. We're looking at trying to place all that storage back to the rear of the property now, right? Instead of using dry wells, we'll use like pipe chambers, right, in a stone trench type thing. So we're looking at getting that volume towards the rear of the property, so there won't be any conflicts in the front yard, right? I know there's also a requirement to keep 10 foot away from the property lines. That was one of your other questions, comments. So we will show all that on the revised plan as well.
And so you think it's doable
Yes.
between stormwater system, planting new trees, and building what you want to build?
Yeah, we ran some preliminary numbers. We'll submit a full report to Mr. Hernandez as well for his review. But yes, based on your latest letter, I did run some preliminary calculations, and we know we can meet that volume and those requirements.
Mr. Hernandez, you generally agree without having seen those numbers?
Without having seen them,
Seem
think it's
possible? I mean, because that's part of one of the things that the
yeah.
board has to, evaluate here with a subdivision. Can you build what
Right.
you're saying you can build?
yeah, I think ideally, I think that's one of the things I had hoped for to see is the full footprint on the plan.
Yeah,
just
we
so
didn't have enough time since
have
we
the
got the
full
letter
context
to
of the
revise the
board.
plans, get them back in. However, we did some preliminaries just to make sure we could address your comments.
Okay.
We feel we can.
Yeah, either way, our office will review it and make sure that everything is up to snuff with the code and our requirements.
Okay.
I have nothing further for the witness. The board has any?
Counselor
additional
Lockman.
questions?
I'm not quite sure who is the correct person to answer this, but if this application is denied, what can you build on that property? Can you just do an addition to the existing house as of right, and what would that look like? And, just in general terms.
Well, I can answer that generally. I mean, you could build quite a significant addition, I would think, to the existing house, which would be totally out of character with what's there now, which is one of the arguments, I think one of the primary arguments in favor of the subdivision is that, we're creating a lot that's consistent in size with the rest of the neighborhood, and therefore the houses will be consistent in size and appearance, and the streetscape will remain the same, and the alternative, if it's not denied, you could then have a much bigger house on the other lot. And, there's, I don't know if the board will remember, but there was a somewhat similar application I had several years ago involving, where we sought to create 2 50-foot lots on Nishawayne Road. There it was a through lot on High Street, and the board didn't want the 2 separate lots. And our planner at that time said, well, 2 smaller lots and 2 smaller houses is much more consistent than a big lot and a big house. And there's now a big house there that I think Dr. Baskerville would agree really doesn't fit in with Nishawayne Road, but that's what, denying that subdivision produced a result that I don't think was good for the neighborhood in that case, and for similar reasons, I think, smaller lots and smaller houses is much more consistent and better for the neighbors here.
Janice, do you agree with that? With what he's saying about what could be built on that lot if this
Yes,
application
we don't have
was
any
denied?
limitation on the size of the house or the volume of the house. It's the setbacks that prevail that determine that. So Mr. Trembulak is correct.
I'd just like to add an opinion to that too, Counselor Lockman. Anybody that knows anything about me knows that in general, I am so totally opposed to dividing lots, and in particular if we're taking down trees. But I really think, and I'm thankful to you all for listening to what we said, what our planner was saying, and I think that what you have here is something that is consistent with the neighborhood. I think that, in particular, if you look across the street at lots number 145, 143, it flows right into the existing size and appearance of structures there. And so as much as I hate the fact that you're going to get rid of my beautiful Christmas tree there, considering the options, I think that this is a good option we have here.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public of this witness? If you have a question for this witness, please come on up to the lectern. Give us your name and address if you would, and then ask questions about his testimony. And make sure the light's on if you would. There's a little push button.
Okay, my name's Robert Rowe. I'm at 148 High Street, And a couple of questions, which I hope were within purview. The fence line, I'm really not sure whose property that is on. Whether it's 148 or going to be 150. So I hope the engineer can answer that.
So you're referring to the fence line at the rear of the property?
No, between the 148 and 150. Is that on
Between
150?
150, so 148 is to the north.
So it's like right on the line?
Yeah, it's right on the property line. The survey shows to me, it looks like the fence to be entirely within the property of 150, it's 150.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
So, yeah, it's
Okay.
about, it's very, very close to the property line, but it is
Okay.
on the property.
With that said, I'd like to make sure I have access to the south side of my garage. Because there's, there's like only a foot distance between the fence and my garage, so I'd need some sort of gates or something like that, and some sort of permission to go on their property so I can get access to my garage.
And I can tell you that's all acceptable. There have been conversations between my client and Mr. Rowe, who was kind enough to send us a letter expressing his concerns months ago, which then resulted in a number of meetings and conversations, and a intent on my client's part to accommodate his concerns, including the fence and the gate that you're discussing, and if you need an easement or a license in order to go onto the neighboring property, that's acceptable as well.
Yeah, and the
Okay.
final plan would be updated to show any easement that was discussed.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
The architect's plan, if I looked at it right, I don't think it's right. It had like a 6-foot or 8-foot stockade fence. I'm not sure they're allowed in this type of neighborhood, so I don't know if that's in the board's purview or not, but everybody else has a 4-foot chain link fence.
Oh, you're talking about the rendering here?
Yeah, the rendering, yeah.
Okay, again, that's just a, yeah, that fence, well,
Well, you're correct. The maximum height permitted is 4.5 feet.
Okay, it's a code issue.
They would, if he wants to put a fence on the property, he'd have to get a zoning permit, no matter what. And it would be a 4.5
we
foot
would reduce
fence.
the fence height, again, this was just showed as.
The fence is not part of this
Okay.
application.
Yeah, right.
We don't show a proposed fence on our drawings.
You're not suggesting you'd prefer a chain link fence, are you?
Over a stockade.
Over a stockade fence?
Well, I would prefer a chain link fence. It lets through light.
Okay,
so
thank
you.
you.
Can see
Just
what's
asking.
growing on the ground, and I like it better.
Okay.
It seems to me when people put up big stockade fences, they're trying to hide something. One man's opinion. And just at last meeting, Ms. Luckham was wondering if 152 it might be a two-family? And
We
the answer
asked the
is no,
same
it's
thing.
most
It's
certainly
not.
not. It's a one-family. And it's been there. If you go inside, you'll see it's a one-family. And I didn't realize, I hadn't even given any thought to the I had given thought to the electric line because there's trees growing up right into the line, and sometimes PSC&G has to come and cut the branches, and I think sometimes it's cut our electricity because a branch has disrupted the line. So I'm glad to see that they're removing them and replacing them. There's one tree, the pole is right at the corner. I think it's on would be on the 150 High Street line. So
Right here.
I saw the applicant was talking about putting underground wires to the house. I think that's a really good idea, and I would like to do that for my house. I don't know if that's part of the plan, but.
I'm not sure they can accommodate that as part of this application.
Well, I'm not asking them to pay for that.
Okay.
But, the pole has both houses on that line, so I don't know how that would affect this board, but.
I don't think there's anything we can do other than to ask Mr. Trumbulak that maybe when his client speaks with PSE&G, he could also say our neighbor would like to do something similar, if you can
course.
accommodate that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, okay, I just wanted to bring that up because that's my comments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have any, were those meant to be your comments as well as questions? Or 'cause-
Yeah,
Because
yes.
in a minute, he's going to ask if anyone has any comments, so.
Oh, okay.
That's true. So
I didn't know.
technically, that was for questions of the engineer's testimony, and then there's another portion of the hearing where you can provide any comments that you may see fit. And unless there's anybody else in the public that has questions for the witness, we could move right to the comments. If Mr. Rowe, you had any comments, positive or negative, about the application, assuming Mr. Tremblay, you're
Yeah,
not calling
we're-
anybody
we're
else?
finished
Okay.
with our presentation.
Okay, well, just one comment. I've been looking at this vacant lot for 42 years and thinking sooner or later, somebody's going to build on it. And I think what's proposed is not a bad plan. So speaking as a neighbor, I'm not opposed to it.
Speaking as a neighbor directly next door
Yeah.
to this proposed
Right.
development, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to make a comment on the application? I don't see anyone.
Okay. If I can just make a couple of concluding comments. Again, just to focus again on the relief we're seeking, minor subdivision approval, and then we need lot width variances for each of the two proposed lots, and then we need a variance to permit the front yard setback at 13.66 feet. So that's the relief we're seeking. I mean, again, I've kind of already, in ways, made the argument for the lot width variance. The lots, throughout this neighborhood are substandard in terms of the current requirement. You have lots across the street that are, again, from 33 feet to 42 feet. Again, our lot, or lots, was originally 2 lots, which were merged by the assessor. We're looking to separate the 2 and to build a house on, I think, what was always envisioned, a lot that was always envisioned to have a house there. It's kind of a missing tooth on the street. We're looking to fill that gap. We've tried to, we understand, this board's concerns certainly about having something that blends in the neighborhood, that's consistent in size, appearance, maintain the street setback. We've, I think, adjusted the plans in response to the board's concerns, certainly, as well as Janice Daly's comments, regarding the porch and the setback and everything else. And, again, the only neighbor who's spoken is the one who's actually most affected by this. We've all seen the case where, neighbor who's across the street or next door, what would I prefer, a vacant lot or a house? And usually people want to keep the open space there. And here Mr. Rowe recognizes that it was always kind of envisioned that there would be a house on this lot. And we think a house fits in perfectly with the existing houses in the neighborhood, that the lot widths are similar to what exists in this 2-block stretch of High Street. And so the variances, I think, are appropriate. We've agreed to comply with all the engineer's comments, and I expect that would be a condition of approval, along with any other conditions that we've discussed, and I can't remember what they might be at this point. So I would hope that the board would favor us with an approval of this application. So, thank you.
Well, I think you've done a nice job with revising the vision for the house so that it does look a lot more like what fits in with the neighborhood, especially as Mayor Baskerville pointed out, looking across the street, east on High Street. When I'm looking at the planner's exhibit from the last hearing, the new style of this house looks a lot more like what we see across the street. And I think that's very important here. And I appreciate that you've downscaled it so that it is more consistent, because that, if you recall, that was one of my big concerns when I heard the planner's testimony saying, we're going to do this in character with the neighborhood. And the first question is, how are you going to do that, right? And so I feel like you all have come back with a plan that does look like the house fits in the neighborhood. it seems appropriate from my view. I appreciate the full porch. I think that does look a lot better than the half porch that was even proposed as we got here tonight. So I appreciate making those efforts, and I would support the application. If anyone else has statements or, nope. See, well, Councilor Lockman.
Any conditions?
Well, I don't move yet. I wanted
Oh,
to just
okay.
let anyone speak if they wanted to speak.
Yeah, I guess I'll probably be in the minority. I like the idea of keeping the open space. I think it's, the Fourth Ward is battling this gentrification, this build and build and build. And I think this is just another example of an investor swooping in, buying a building, wanting to build something else, making money on it. And whereas we have a nice open lot in an area that once again has house after house after a house, and then you come and you look at this and it's nice. It's nice to have the open lot. It looks nice. The people do take care of it. It doesn't look like a vacant lot. It looks like their backyard. And I think that's helpful for this neighborhood, which is very dense and congested. And I realize and I do agree that they did a nice job if this is what we wanted, to put a house in there. It looks nice, it does match the neighborhood, but my preference would be to keep the lot open.
Yeah, I appreciate the responsiveness of the application to the concerns of the board, and I think it worked out really well. I think kind of everyone benefited at the end of it all, which is great. But I just want to highlight, because it's something we've highlighted the last time this application came up and in discussing the fair share housing plan, but just working to make sure our zoning is consistent with the community as it exists, rather than being something that it doesn't match it, right? And so making sure, as this application does, to like really align that, because the 60-foot lot widths are not what this portion of our community has, and the 25-foot lot depth does not match what the community has. And so making sure our zoning is actively trying to match that, and if not, more conform. I think this goes a long way to doing that, and broader town-wide, we should be hoping for the same.
I just want to say this time the adjustments are good, and then thanks for bringing information in so we have enough to make a decision. Thanks.
So with that, I would move to approve this application with our standard conditions, plus that you'll present revised plans per the testimony we heard tonight. You'll present calculations and whatnot that our engineer needs to confirm that our requirements are met, that you'll provide an easement for the neighbor at 148 to access his garage, along with an access gate in that fence. What else?
Should we say easement or license to just
Easement
give
or
them the
license, sure, or
flexibility?
access
Yeah.
agreement, whatever is the most appropriate tool. Leave that up to the board attorneys.
Did you want to put a maximum size for the size of the proposed house?
I believe the maximum would be what's shown, or what's been presented
Well,
to us
what's been-
today.
Right, my suggestion would be to put it in a resolution, because what was testified to is not what was shown. What was testified was 2,424.
24. I think
And
was,
2424.
So if you put that in the resolution, we've got documentation.
Add that.
And I'd also suggest that they prepare a tree replacement plan prior to submitting their building permit application, so that have that tree replacement plan approved prior to taking down the trees and getting your building permit.
And making sure there's no conflicts with our stormwater management system. I think that's important, because I think it's easy to put a tree on a plan, but when you consider what else is underground, it may not always work out well. And so that the structure, so we've got a maximum size, it's going to be built consistent with what we've seen in the exhibits. Anything else? There's my motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Abstained?
No, opposed.
I know, you said opposed. I got that. I got you opposed. And anybody abstained? Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank
Welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Let's take a 5-minute break.
That corner store does pretty well. I always see people in there. Yeah, that juice place or whatever.
Okay, everyone,
Oh, next one.
okay, let's just, give me 2 seconds. We're back on the record, Ms. Talley? Okay, Mr. Tremblak, you had something you wanted to raise with us?
Yeah, they're sharing the kitchen.
Well, I know you're going to have a discussion on fair share housing element, which might take up, the bulk of the rest of the meeting. So I discussed with my client, I think we would ask that this is regarding 117 Watchung Avenue, which is my application that's on the agenda. We would ask that be carried to the second May meeting. I have a conflict for the first. May 21st. Let me just make sure. Or is it the 19th? I think it's the 19th.
May 19?
May 19th.
And we would consent to any necessary extension of time for the board to act on the application. And I think you're going to announce the postponement for the Malign or the Rodio one too, Janice?
Yes, the application 2919 for 225 Lorraine Avenue will also be postponed to the May 19th meeting.
So, okay.
May 19th.
And are those the only two applications on for the 19th at this point? Out of curiosity.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so that's good with you?
Yes,
Okay, no further notice be required?
yes.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank
You too.
You as well.
okay, so those two applications under new business will both be postponed until May 19th. Okay, so then continuing on, we have under old business, discussion of the housing element and fair share plan. Ms. Talley.
So I don't have a presentation for tonight's discussion. As we discussed, the public hearing for this will be 2 weeks from tonight at the May 5th meeting. What's in the draft that we sent out to you last week represents everything that we've been discussing over the past couple of weeks, actually past couple of months. I did not get a chance to schedule a site visit with HomeCore. We had talked about that at the last meeting. I tried to do it, but because of vacation schedules and holiday schedules, we were unable to do a site visit because HomeCore, as we discussed, was requesting the ability to build on some of their properties. So at this point, what I have included in this plan is I've identified certain properties and proposed overlay zoning for them. I haven't worked out the details, for instance, for the HomeCore overlay zone, perhaps on Miller Street. I know they were looking at putting ADUs in the back. Those properties are a little bit unique because they've got multiple structures on the lot. And then the one on William Street, which is a 6-family house, they're proposing to being able to build a companion 6-family house on that property and provide parking in the back. So for now, I identified that as an overlay zone, as a potential. Some of the other properties that I included in here was an overlay zone for the Crawford Cruise site. I took a look at what they want to build there. It would require a density variance of up to 100 units per acre to provide 8 units, because it's a very small lot. So at this point, I haven't proposed any specifics in here, but I've identified that as an overlay zone where we should provide separate zoning requirements that we want to see for that particular property. I did the same thing for one of the accessory buildings at the Mount Carmel Holy Church, which was originally at some point a convent, then it became, I believe, an education building, as a potential overlay zone for 100% affordable housing. So those were the approaches that I took into this plan. Essentially, the way this plan is structured is our obligation is, we fully met our rehabilitation obligation, and we have no prospective need. So really what this plan looks at are opportunities to create affordable housing. Some of them are township-owned properties. The Wildwood Avenue property we've identified as an opportunity for 4 two-family homes. Again, the plan proposes an overlay zone for that property and similar treatment for the township-owned property on New Street. So I believe those were the specific proposals in this plan. The other proposals, we just identified areas where development may occur. For instance, in Walnut Street, we've been made aware of, obviously, the bus depot. The DeCamp bus depot is no longer used as a bus depot, so development is anticipated on that property. There may be development on other properties that are underutilized, and we've been made aware of in the Walnut Street area where the owner may sell. There's no changes that are proposed in terms of density. I think I recommend cleaning up the requirements in the C2 zone so it's a little bit clearer. And there's an opportunity to maybe go through what the zoning requirements are right now in the C2 zone and make sure it works for the township to get the kind of development you want to see. But we don't need to increase or change any of the zoning, other than what I had recommended, which we've talked about, which is keeping the 20% set aside in our inclusionary zoning, adding an increase that's set aside to 25% for applications that involve a use variance, setting aside a certain number of the affordable units for supportive housing. And that's, I think, in a nutshell, allowing 100% affordable housing as a permitted use for faith-based properties owned by faith-based organizations, particularly as it relates to adaptive reuse of their existing structures. And
Acme, we didn't have to change any density there, the Acme, right?
we probably have to come up with a density, a maximum density in there.
What were you thinking?
I don't have those numbers right now.
Okay.
Essentially, if the way I see it, if these policies are the direction that you, the planning board, want to go in, then we will work on the specifics for the zoning. What I really need, before I go that next step, I need to get direction from the planning board that we want to do this in our plan. And then we will develop the zoning the zoning ordinances to implement them. The zoning ordinances would not be adopted until, sometime the end of this year or next year. I forgot what the time frame is.
So-
This is just a recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. So, this is very dense trying to get through this, and I have not gotten through all of the plan and all of the ordinances and everything that you've included in this binder. And so it just got me thinking, why are we doing all of this for June if we have no prospective obligation? And how is this addressed to the public? Are they, even for me, are we going to think that this is what the planning board wants the town to do? Or, I don't really get what we're trying to do here, quite
Okay.
honestly.
You absolutely have to submit this by the June
Yes,
30th
yeah.
deadline.
But not this. You have to.
No, this. You have to submit this.
She's feeling what I'm feeling. So what exactly do you have to do?
You
by-
have to submit your housing element, which is I presented the draft housing element to you, and the fair share plan with all of these draft ordinances that I've also been sent to the council. That's with the spending plan. It's a package. Now, it doesn't mean you can't change it, but that has to be submitted. And what that does is you submit that by the June 30th deadline. You submit it to the entity for dispute resolution at each county. That way, we secure our position that, number one, we're protected from a builder's remedy lawsuit.
Right.
Number two, we can continue. We need to be able to get approval of our spending plan. That's key. And you need the court, I'm not sure exactly if it'll be the state DCA that approves our spending plan, or if it's going to be this Center for Dispute Resolution that's going to be approving our spending plan. But we need to get our spending plan approved. We need to get our manuals, all of those manuals. I said, that's all part of what needs to be submitted and what gets approved.
Are you sure, Janice? Because I looked this up, and it said that you submit a modified fair housing and housing element plan. And I was wondering, what does that mean by a modified plan? Looks like we're doing a full-blown
I have no
plan
idea
here.
what you're talking about in terms of
Well,
a modified.
My problem with what we're doing, I was somewhat, it just seemed to me that it's rather complicated to be pressing so much at one time. It's very complicated, all the things we're trying to do.
And
But at the
we're in a
moment,
better
we're not
situation
required
than
to
any
do
other
that.
town.
Well, that's it. Are we required to do the full-blown
It seems like we're
thing?
rushing to do a whole lot of things which aren't really that well, at least to me, that clear that we want to sign on and make that our town plan. I think right now we could get more clarity on what each of those steps would be, and
That is I understand what
because they're
you're,
not asking us to do that much. And what is the advantage to us of committing ourselves to this particular definition of each of these rather?
because you're not tying yourself to do anything because we don't have a number. All right? So these are suggestions, like our previous housing plan recommended housing on New Street. We pursued it, we decided not to do that.
Right.
And in the end, we still achieved our housing obligation for the third round,
Yeah.
even if we didn't move forward with everything that was included in that plan. What I'm saying is, the components of a housing element are very specifically defined in state statute, and all of those requirements are in this plan. You can't take a shortcut and avoid it because the employment projections, the identified areas of where potential housing can be supported. Those are absolute requirements in your housing element according to the municipal land use law. So that's what's in here. But what are you tying yourself to do? At this point, because what this plan does is it documents that you have fully met your obligation. We went through all the numbers. You have no prospective need. The way this is structured, you have fully met your prior round, your present need, which is your rehabilitation obligation. And it confirms that to whoever, to the court that we're submitting this to and to the state. And it provides options where if we can provide affordable housing moving in the future, but you're really not tied to it because you fully met your obligation. So if you want to, in a year or two, if you want to amend the housing plan, you can do that. But you can not, if you want, you don't have to adopt this, but I certainly wouldn't recommend it because I think that would certainly not be in the township's best interest.
Sorry, just to follow up. Why isn't that explicitly stated, that we've met our prospective need, we've met our rehabilitation need. However, what's presented in this plan are options for the future if we chose to go this way. It sounds like when I read this and that this is what we want to do. And I don't think that's clear that this is what we want to do.
And that's where you can make the changes. I think
Well,
what
I don't know that we want to make these, it's like a compendium of options that you've presented
Okay, that's
here.
what I'm feeling about it.
Yeah.
I found myself reading through this and thinking this is very complex, and I don't know why I'm signing on. This is what I'm actually going to do, especially when we're not required to say this is what we're going to do. It's
I
like a
think if you
menu.
look at,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I don't think we're signing ourselves up for anything other than saying, like, we as the board have looked at these options, and we think they are our best options. Best options doesn't mean that we're going to do them. It doesn't mean that they have to be done. And it doesn't mean that we necessarily put them all on the same plan. It's on the same plane of enthusiasm. It's just like looking at what the state requires, looking at what our resources as a town are. This is what we can do to ensure that we are in compliance with the law. And I understand not feeling very rushed, right? Like the state's timeline is tight. And I think that's fine. We are in a much better place than anyone else. And I think that being said, like, as Janice said, I feel very comfortable that we can go back and change it if we end up not liking some of these things. Because I don't think we're binding ourselves to really anything other than using our credits to meet our current need. Like, that's really the only binding part of the plan.
The other thing is, we do have, $4 to $5 million in our housing trust fund.
Yeah.
The plan has to provide the basis of how you're going to spend your money.
Right.
So
And you have to spend that money, right? Or
if we
the
don't
state can
spend
take
it,
that
we
money.
lose it.
In 10
Well,
years,
no,
you're
I'm
saying?
not-
No, 4
yeah.
years.
4 years to
No,
spend
4
5
years.
million in
All right,
4
let me-
years.
I'm sorry, it's a 10-year spending plan. But the way it works is when you collect the money, you have 4 years to spend it. If you don't spend it within the 4 years, then the state can take it away.
Incremental by year, though. If you collect 100,000 this year, you have 4 years to spend it. Next year, you collect another 100, you have another 4 years. It's not like we have 4 years to spend 2 million right now.
Well, we have $2 million right now.
Right, right.
Hopefully, I'm not saying that the state's going to take it, but we've been sitting on this $2 million for 2 years.
That's right.
So the
So-
$2 million we have to spend within 4 years, or we should have spent it already. But then the rest comes in incrementally, and then you add 4 years. Yeah,
Exactly. So I'm just saying, you're setting the stage
Yeah.
for the spending plan, which
Yeah.
is
The
something that
council's
the council adopts.
obligation,
Yes.
not yours, not
Yes.
this board's.
Well,
Yeah,
Not this board.
yeah, sorry, yeah, yeah.
And I appreciate what this does, and I agree with the commissioner here. I think that it gives some recommendations of what we might do, and I think it'll be very helpful as councils change, for example, in the next couple of years, versus that they come in and it gives them some well-thought-out things that we've thought about. My concern, I guess, is probably the opposite. My concern is if we don't include things like Transit Village at the Bellevue Avenue parking lot, for example, where you can have retail on the bottom and then some affordable housing, can we then come in and say, hey, we'd like to do a Transit Village in that parking lot, because we don't have it clearly delineated in the plan. So I just want to make sure that people know, again, what they're saying, that this is just some thoughts, some suggestions, and we might expand into some things that we didn't include in there.
Right. I mean, the township can always do a transit village initiative if they so choose. I think when I was doing this, my concern was missed opportunities.
Yes.
When these opportunities come up to create affordable housing, either on township-owned property or properties that are owned by nonprofit organizations or faith-based organizations, let's have the discussion with them and match it with some, funding programs or funding opportunities where we can provide matching funds to not lose those opportunities where it works. That's all that this does. The other issue is, again, we have been trying to work with Home Corps for quite a few years. Because we don't want the 62 affordable units that they maintain right now to be lost. This is responding to their latest proposal. I don't know if this works. We can certainly say we will look into it. It's not binding to us right now, because we don't, we're just trying to tie the need to preserve those 62 units with our extension of affordability controls program that we have right now. So those are the kinds of items that are included in here. And also to provide support for continuing our inclusionary zoning program, which, again, we have a 20% set aside across the board. A lot of towns don't have that. And so continuing, this basically supports, I don't think there's anything mind-boggling or anything incredibly new in this plan.
I'd like to just jump in, because I'm mind-boggled about the Home Corps putting ADUs there, in particular, when I listen to this group,
Right.
Councilor Lockman, and people all over, and they keep saying, we don't want to add any density to the fourth ward, you know, leave some open space, put some trees. And then because Home Corps comes, at what degree now we're going to say we're going to put ADUs in the backyard of a historic area that is very dense to, you know, give them whatever, hopefully, and we don't even know for a fact because I haven't seen, you know, their financials. I don't know if that will even get them where they want to, but we're even considering that. That's mind-boggling to me, because if we have options, as we do, we have, you know, other groups that are very interested in trying to help them out in other ways. My question is this body, you know, going to be so compelled because Home Corps has done some amazing things, and I've been a very strong supporter. My mom before that, you know, in her will left substantial amounts to help them, so we all know about their history, but I'm not willing to then just all of a sudden change the character of a neighborhood and add extra density to an extremely dense area that is nice, you know, historic feel, and just say, okay, now you guys can do whatever you want to make this and hope that this will allow you to thrive when it may not. That's mind-boggling.
But can I, you had said, Jake, that these are the best options for the town. And I would object to that language. These are just options, that if we chose to do this or not, we will or we won't. And like I look at something like Wildwood, we're not going to go out there and say, hey, developers, come and tell us what you're going to do with this. We're going to wait until somebody comes and then decide. Is that, am I looking at this wrong?
No, in this case, you're in the driver's seat because we own the land.
But,
so
okay.
it would be issuing an RFP and structuring an RFP to get what you want built on that property.
If this were adopted by the planning board. Now, if I oppose that one particular element of this fair share plan, because I feel like we need open spaces, as we were just talking about, then how does that, what happens then? This is what I don't understand. What are the action points that take place with this plan?
Well, these are recommendations.
Yeah.
So the recommendation in this plan, just like our last plan recommended that we sell 5052 New
Yeah.
Street, we never did.
But who initiates this? Who initiates acting on some of these plans?
It's the council.
Yeah.
The council. Okay,
It's
so
the
if we don't
council.
want it, it's not going to happen.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Or until
Essentially,
the next council, theoretically.
Yeah, yeah.
But it seems to me like it's still a menu of options, and we're not committed to any of them, and it just sounds like we are committed in writing, but we don't really feel that we are. It seems to me that somehow we're not really at the point of recommending these. These are all of the ideas that we have not committed to. Now, maybe to have a hearing and see what the public thinks about these ideas might help us to discern some of what we're committed to. But to write it up as though these are things that we're absolutely recommending seems a bit stronger than I think we've really thought through.
that's your prerogative. Okay, I think I'm trying to frame the issue. Frame the issue. You are not under any obligation to actually do this. Right?
Well, there are
But-
some that we would like better than others, you see.
Well, then that's what that's the feedback that should be put into the plan. What is your preference? I mean, you're in a really good position. Most towns are not in this position.
Yes.
They're being forced to make decisions. In this case, you have options and
Well, that's what I'm trying
flexibility.
to focus on.
And the ability, these are things that can happen. Again, by pointing them out in the plan, the group, the working with, not group homes, with rooming houses. There's a big an analysis of all the rooming houses. If one of them comes up for sale, maybe we can work with one of the property owners to make that into supportive housing or affordable housing. What it does is it elevates these items as potential affordable housing opportunities. Not that you need them to meet some state mandated number, but maybe it works.
I think the language in which I would favor a language which states it in those terms.
Okay.
As opposed
That's the
to,
problem.
these are the things that we're recommending that we do.
We can do that.
These are ideas that are worth perhaps some better than others. you know, but I just don't like the language that we're using at the moment in terms of our full-throated commitment to do these things.
And we can mention that we recognize that there are various interests that need to be balanced, and list them out and say, one of them are these potential sites for affordable housing.
Right.
So, and it can be, we can mention also that we recognize open space should also be a priority, and controlling density.
I like this softer language.
Yeah.
And also, there are other groups, like you have your vets, as we talked about.
Yeah.
We have disabled people who need special kind of housing. So that's not really discussed here.
Yeah, well,
Is it?
actually it is. That's where it's.
I'm just saying I didn't read everything, so. is
I
it-
know, I
yeah,
know. So
yeah.
what we did was that I recommend a certain number of units be set aside for supportive housing. The Crawford Cruise overlay site is for the veterans, to make it easier, to come
Yeah,
up,
yeah,
to be proactive and come up with an overlay zone for their particular site. And then to set aside some of the funding in the housing, in the spending plan, to provide a additional source of funding, not to be the sole source of funding, but to support efforts to create new units. And then finally, I lost my train of thought. Here, for supportive housing, to change the inclusionary zoning ordinance so that a certain percentage of the support of the new units that are created, I forgot what the number was, 15% of the new units that are created are set aside for supportive housing, because they can be integrated into larger projects with affordable housing.
Are you making a distinction between what kinds of supportive housing? Like, for example, people with disabilities are very different than people with addiction problems. You know,
I did not,
Yeah.
it's all falls under the umbrella of supportive housing. And as you move forward on specific initiatives, then you can narrow that distinction. But that distinction does not, and probably should not be in the housing plan. You basically make that distinction as opportunities arise.
Well, I would just say, to support Carol's point of view, is my point of view, we need to have it clearer to someone reading this who is not in the know about any of this. What is the point of this housing plan? And it seems to be, one point is to meet state requirements, but in reality for our town, what is the point? We're just giving people potential ideas for affordable housing, additional housing in town, and here's the list of things you could possibly do. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't, you're going to get the public in a tizzy if we say we're going to do all this. And I think we'd prefer not to have, pitchforks coming after us in the council meeting because we said we're going to change the zoning.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
Or someone coming to the board to say that your document says that you're supporting this kind of broad range thing, and I want to do this, and we thought, well, I don't
Correct.
really want that.
That's the biggest fear, that the people, and they always do, we've been doing this long enough, they'll come down to the mic and they'll say, well, it says right here that you guys, we can do this, and now you're telling me I can't.
Right.
So, yeah, I agree with what I hear, and I think the way you framed it was excellent.
But I do think, just to your point, I think people will be taking this out and saying, this is in your master plan,
right.
so
They
you
will.
can
We
do
can do
this.
all of these things.
So I think we'd have to
We have a right
we
do
have to
these
get the
things.
wording.
The planning board says we have a right to do
That's
this.
right,
Well, that's what the master plan is, right? It's
Yeah.
the vision document for the
policy
township,
document,
right?
right?
Yeah, but
I think it's
do
also-
we have the same vision in that, in those loose paragraphs that's going to come up and meet all of
Right.
that? And
Well,
how do we
I-
defend
I-
ourselves when we didn't really even think of that? Oh, my God.
And I think that's why this, I think an introductory paragraph or section that just
Yes.
says, here's what's in here, here's why we did it.
Yes.
yes.
It's not, and it's somehow come around to, it's not necessarily a recommendation for all of these. These are the options that should be considered. I
It's a
like this
menu
point
of
of,
At
things
this
that
point
may
in
work
time.
out if we
at
come
this
up
point in
with-
time,
you will.
and I like this
That's
idea
good.
of, so as if an opportunity arises
Yes.
to take the next step on one of these items, we've got, a framework of a plan on how to evaluate it.
Yes.
That's what I like about this.
Yes.
Well, Well, thank you, Keith.
Well, just because, I mean, you raise a good point, right?
That's a
If
great
something
point,
comes up
yeah.
where something's for sale, or we have money and we need to deploy capital somehow, you know, we could sit around and go, I don't know, what do we do? What should we do? Oh, wait, here's a document that has 10 different options.
It says we can
Okay.
do
What do we
this.
think would be the best? And that's where you can take that away and
Yep.
work with the council and other interested parties to say,
Yeah.
hey, what do you all think is the highest priority, the
Right.
best use for the
Yes.
capital?
Yes.
I think that's a great way of framing it, because it is a resource for
Yes,
the
there you
people who
go.
work in town and the council and us to like be able to go back to and reference, because I know you've talked about specifically with some of these property sales where like a rooming house comes up for sale and we want to buy it. It can be slow to get off the ground on that.
Oh, yeah.
And that makes it difficult to preserve some of this important housing. And so having that option laid out right in advance, it's a lot easier to get those wheels turning, rather than having to figure out, do we think this is
Yeah.
something to consider, and starting that conversation then, rather than starting it now.
It's not a mandate, that's what we're trying to
Right.
get at.
Yeah.
This is not a mandate to do
Yes.
any of this stuff. If
I-
it comes up, here's our guidance, here's what the council, the planning board in this instance thinks. And, yeah, I think that's a better way to frame it, with an opening paragraph talking about the narrative that you said.
Yeah.
And Janice, I wanted to say one more thing. I wanted to thank you for all the work you did on this.
Yeah.
It's really a lot of work, and it's really very helpful, a great resource to look at some of the data that you have in here. And thank you.
No, thank you.
I
Yeah,
want
I-
I want a binder like hers, please. I'd like this fourth round housing element and fair share binder, please.
Mayor, you will get one.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I think, oh,
Let me have Jacob first, then I'll go over to Mr. Ian-Wally.
to Carmel's point, but also to Carmel and the mayor specifically, I think that's one of the huge assets of having a planner in-house.
Yeah.
A lot of towns don't have planners in-house at this point. And so Janice is an immense resource, because Montclair is not one of 7 clients she's working for, trying to get their plans done. She's able to work just for us, and
This
so.
is tailor-made for Montclair Township.
Right.
It's a bespoke
Yeah,
housing plan.
and I think that's a real asset. You know, I work in West Orange, they don't have a planner in-house, and it's not the same, right? You don't have that same wealth of resources available every day.
Oh,
And
we're
so I just want to
grateful for
emphasize
that. Yeah,
that.
thank you, Janice. Grateful for
And
you.
let's not forget this board either.
Yeah.
That's true.
No, I'm serious about it.
That's
I'm not
true,
trying
yeah.
to break my arm patting us on the back. It's just,
Right.
this is played out over a series of months, right? Where we saw some initial discussions, we provided feedback to Ms. Talley. She came back with some other ideas. We've gone back and forth. And so I feel like, even though it feels rushed, and I feel the same way that this is rushed, we've got good options on the table that we've gone back and forth, and we've had a lot of discussion on it. Is it done to the point where we feel like, absolutely, this is what we're going to do? No. But I feel like we're in a good spot
Correct.
based on all the discussions that we've had. And turn over to Mr. Ian-Wally.
Yeah, I have, like, I guess three or 4 points. One is be careful selling town land. We've seen that. I keep all the town land, even if they're just recycling some yard waste on it for the future. We'll never get it back. Number 2 is the most effective way to build the housing is through the inclusionary plan, because the developments that are proposed are multi-hundred unit developments. So 20% of that is so impactful relative to the 1 or 2, the effort that you put into doing 2 or 3 units here. Then the third one was, see if you can not make the existing affordable units expire. So it's cheaper to, I would think it would be cheaper to extend those rather than have those come out of affordability and then have to keep building. You're kind of in this never-ending circle. So I don't know if that, I mean, I know with the Pine Street property, there was an extension on that, I think, but,
Which property is that?
11.
yeah, 11, I think that
Yeah,
did
we extended it on six
So I
of
don't-
the units.
I don't know if do we have the expiration dates of when the existing stuff expires?
Oh, yeah, all of them. But,
Okay.
in that case, for example, the 11 Pine, we really didn't have a huge say because we didn't put those deed restrictions in place. It was a tax,
Tax credit?
a tax credit project. So sometimes, no matter how much you offer them, we'll give you money. They're not interested in extending them. We were only able to extend those because it was
Part of
linked
the new
to another
development, yeah.
inclusionary development project.
That's what they're doing, they're substituting sometimes.
So,
We'll agree to renew that if we don't have to give up something somewhere else.
right, well, some of them, they're much more interested in converting to market. We don't have a big enough stick to make them.
That's what I'm getting at, yeah, I'm agreeing with that.
So but we can, those that we create through our inclusionary zoning ordinance, the state law does give us a lot of power to extend those through it's called the 95.5 provision. So those that we create through our ordinances, we will be able to extend.
Get a longer term to start?
Hmm?
A longer term to start?
Yeah,
How
a longer
long
term to
can you
start,
go?
and we have it's baked into the regulations that we have the right of first refusal if it's a sales unit. And there's things that we can do for rental units to extend those as well, so.
How far do you think you could go on rental units?
Well, right now, it's a minimum of 40 years under the new regulations.
Oh,
Okay, it was 30 years before, now it's a
Okay.
minimum of 40. Hey, with Talbot Village, we got a 99-year deed restriction, so.
Just back to Home Corps.
Yeah.
I think, Home Corps has 62 units. It provides homes for 200 people, from what we heard. I feel like we should be doing our damnedest to make sure that they remain financially stable and an asset of this town, not sold to somebody else. And I hope that we can work on that. So, there you go.
We've been trying to do that for a couple of years, so yeah, I agree
Well,
with
Yeah,
you.
and a couple of millions of dollars. Just to follow up on what Mr. Ian Wally was saying, I received the fact, and certainly you're true, that if we get larger developments, we can get more numbers, but I tend to differ in terms of that being something positive. One of the things that I like most about Montclair and the way that we do affordable housing is that we've always done it in a way that's very kind and respectful, and we've never done, like a whole building of affordable housing where people can walk down the streets and the young kids can say, oh, you live in the Jacks, and identify people based on their income. And I celebrated Montclair for decades because I thought it was really nice the way we would have integrated into other buildings, affordable units where most people don't even know who they are. It's gotten to a point where our developers appreciate that about us, and when they're doing whatever, granite or whatever the top of the line is they're putting in now, they do that for all of the units. And so I hope that we don't start getting in our minds that we've got to get, especially since we aren't under the pressure deal, we've got to get a huge number of something and they've all got to be affordable units, because I just think it's less respectful, and I would prefer that we continue to integrate them. And just celebrating Home Corps as I do, I think that some people should see the houses that they did early on for our police officers and understand what affordable housing looks like, because most people in the township still, have no idea. They talk about Miller Street, right? But they don't know. Remember, Janice, the beautiful houses, the 3-story houses that were some things that would actually fit in very well to the types of housing that are on Wildwood and other things. So we just have to continue with educating and try to be as respectful about whatever it is that we do, and let people know that we really don't want people to walk around and be able to identify people, based on, obviously, if they're living up on Lloyd and they're actually scot-free and paid, people would assume maybe that their resources can get them there. But by and large, we don't want to have locations that people can point out and call them jacks.
I'd just like to say kudos to the planning board, because I think it was us that said all the affordable units have to look like, have the same accommodations as the regular market rate unit does. Granite, dishwashers, everything like that, right? So we deserve a tap on the back.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very much in tune with this as we're going. It's just that I want us to make sure that we don't commit ourselves by putting a lot of stuff and making them look all equal and looking as though that we have an open kind of a mind on it. But I do like having, I do appreciate the work. I do appreciate the ideas that are there. But I don't want us to make it look as though we're going to absolutely allow and do all of those things.
Okay.
Mr. Neiman.
I've got a few specifics I want to touch on. And the first is a small one, but on the list of religious property, there was a map included there. And I don't believe the Immaculate Conception football field was highlighted on that list, and that's like a 2 or 3 acre lot. It's pretty big. And it's church property.
They didn't make it into the map?
I didn't see it. I may have just missed it, but I didn't see it on the map highlighted.
I would say that's something the town wants to keep as an athletic field.
I'm not suggesting they don't, but just it is religious property, and it's
Yeah. Hopefully not for long.
And so there's that. On the inclusionary zoning ordinance,
Your eyesight must have been very good to be able to figure that out.
it was
from
big
the
enough.
map.
It was on the wrong side of the street. Yeah. The inclusionary zoning ordinance, I know we discussed, and I think some members of the board had liked the idea of eliminating the I guess, cap, where if you don't build too densely, you're excluded from having to accommodate the inclusionary zoning ordinance. You said if it's less density than 8 units an acre, I believe, it doesn't apply. I
Reduce the minimum.
basically make it, if you're building,
Essentially, as if, right now, it's, you have to build the 20% set aside applies when you build 5 units.
right,
Period. Let's get rid of the minimum density.
Exactly.
The trigger would be five, a net increase of 5
yeah,
units.
exactly. Because
Okay.
having that density requirement basically encourages you to build less dense.
That's a very excellent
And that's
idea.
not something we'd like. And on the naturally occurring affordable housing FAR overlay, I think fine-tuning it to have it be a little less firm would be helpful in preventing people from turning 2 families into 1 families. Because if you've got a hard FAR cap, if property values are still going to increase, if you can't expand it all, it may encourage folks to buy these 2-family homes and turn them into 1-family homes, which is going to eliminate housing.
Well,
And so allowing,
What's wrong with that? I mean, I feel like, you know,
there's-
this is America. We
No,
have like private interests here.
I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
you shouldn't be able to. I'm saying by making the FAR cap a little more flexible and allowing a 2-family house to have a higher floor area ratio and a 3-family house to have a higher floor area ratio than a 1-family house, you're making it so that folks can, it's easier to maintain that 2-3-family house as a 2-3-family house. If someone wants to come in, buy it, turn it into a 1-family, they can always do that, right? That's always going to be allowed. But by keeping the floor area ratio the same for all types of housing, if you have, say, a 2-family house, pretty modest, say 1,800 square feet, right? 2 900-unit apartments, it could be more profitable for someone to come in, make it into a 1-family house, and resell it, which eliminates a housing unit. Whereas if you give them the flexibility to add a bit more building, they may be able to make it 2 1,200 square foot units, add 600 square feet of space, right? And those 2 1,200 square foot units are going to be still desirable because they're not too small, but also going to be cheaper than 1 single-family house, more accessible than 1 single-family house. And so just building in a little cushion to not encourage 2 families and 3 families from becoming 1 family.
I mean, one alternative I think I might have mentioned in the past is limiting the size of the, saying that existing single-family homes can only be expanded by 20%.
Yeah.
So rather than have an FAR, have a maximum expansion.
Yeah, I would hate to
another
see
idea.
2 families become 1 families because that's less housing. And it's obviously everyone's right. This is not about taking away the right to do it, but I don't want the economic incentives to push it that way. And then this is just a general thing to consider, I think, for the board and to think about. Looking through, it had the list of what our land uses were, or zoned areas were, and 75% of the town roughly is zoned residential. 60% of that sorry, 60% of the town is zoned single family. And so that's about 80% of the residential zoned land. The 20% that's not single family zoned has 51% of the housing units. No. So,
The zoning, I gotcha.
of the
Yeah.
residentially
Yeah.
zoned land
I got
that's
you.
not single family, that has, that's 20%. And it has 51% of the housing units in town. And so 80% of the land is single family and has 49% of the housing units. And so the heavy lifting is happening on those multifamily units. And I think it's just something to think about in the how many people there are who are living in those multifamily properties and how much that is part of Montclair's character, when a lot of times people will say that it's all the single family homes and all that. But, 51% of folks are living in that 20% of the land. And we've banned that type of land use from 80% of our residential properties.
I know we've allowed the two families historically because they were one families that went illegal into two families and we adopted it. We didn't do it the other way.
Well, actually, I think, I know that we've always had it's been somewhat confusing looking at the literature. It said in the literature that 50% of the houses in Montclair, or the 50% were single-family houses. But I don't know what that means in terms of the actual number of people who are living in them. And one of the things that I think is a very valuable thing in terms of generational wealth would be the two-family home, which is disappearing all over the country. What I'm finding is the new communities, there's no such thing as a two-family home.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that our planners in the early days had the wisdom to make this a diverse community in the way that they did structure, that there'd be small lots where you could build a one-family home, neighborhoods where you could have a two-family home, the view from the mountaintop where you could have a big acre home. I think that's one of the things that kept Montclair as a diverse community.
Yeah.
And what I'm afraid of is losing the two-family home, because there's very few of them, and in most the new towns across the country, there's no such thing. If you go down to, say, Baltimore or wherever, or you can't find them except in the old neighborhoods. So anyway, I like the fact that Montclair, and I'd like us to make an effort to preserve this opportunity for the two-family home or the smaller home. I think the wisdom was back there, which has made Montclair the diverse community that we're so happy with.
Yeah, and to your point, a two-family home fits right in anywhere in town, right? Like, it wouldn't throw you off no matter where you are.
And it doesn't distinguish itself by even looking at it.
Exactly. And so it's really a way to have more housing and have more people without really heavily impacting the pre-existing community, which we do all value. There's a reason we're here. And so, a lot of that, I think, can make a huge difference. And even if it's not the affordable housing with a capital A, it's housing that's more achievable and accessible for folks who want to be here and stay in their community.
I'd just like to say one more thing about not affordable housing with capital A. People who own two-family houses and people who live in two-family houses, they generally charge less rent. I mean, that's a proven thing, that the people who live in multifamily houses, 2 to 3, whatever, they charge less rent. So you have this whole substrata of housing that is not called affordable housing, but is much more affordable than, the new units on wherever, Willow, or, so we don't take that into account when we look at this, that there is affordable housing in Montclair in these 2 and 3 family homes. And especially if the owner lives there, because you're living with these people, you don't want turnover in your tenants. It's not like you're a big commercial property manager. You just, you want someone to stay there for X number of years. Sometimes, and many times from my experience with talking to small landlords, they don't raise the rent. You can talk to people who own these two-family houses. They've kept it. I mean, I own a 3-family house. I didn't raise the rent for 7 years on my tenant. Finally, when they put in rent control, I said, I'm not going to be the greater fool. I'm going to raise the rent now every year in accordance with the rent control is. But for years, I didn't do that because I felt like, I know the person, they live with me, whatever. Anyway, I just want to bring that out, that there's more affordable housing in town than we really are aware of, if we're just looking at these units that are regulated.
I'd just like to speak a little bit about the two-family houses, and certainly I don't have any data that talks about if we're losing them. I don't know if you do or not in our township. But again, if we just look beyond the little box that we're used to looking into and say started on South Mountain, so we know if you're going right across the street from the art museum, we have some townhouses there. We have apartments there of all sizes. Moving down South Mountain, we have carriageway, and we have some more apartments, and we have maybe even units that are, by virtue of their age and being there, would be considered affordable. So again, I go back to the fact that if we just stop being afraid to now say we're losing two-family houses, might we be able to take the next house over in those non-conforming areas and give people an opportunity to create two-family houses? What does that do? That gives us now 2 units that would probably be much more affordable. It may give the individual that's lived there for a long time, has no family, no grandkids there, would love to be able to do something like that, an opportunity to do something else. And it doesn't change the character of the neighborhood. Most people, aren't even aware of the fact that, South Mountain has a very diverse type of housing where I'm talking about, and it would just be an extension. So I think that we need to, keep our open minds. We need to, yes, consider that two-family housing serves a very important role in terms of creating housing that is more affordable for people and not just limited in our mind to what we think we'll stick one here because whatever that because may be.
I think that's a very good point, and I don't think we need to go into specifics in terms of the housing plan about the value of our two-family housing area, because I know I've talked about it in the past, and we've started working on it. I don't think that really needs to be in depth in the housing element and fair share plan. We can go into a lot more depth when we amend the master plan,
Yes.
the land use plan. But
Yes.
I can certainly, I'm trying to take everything that you say tonight and integrate it into this draft document, and that would certainly be a recommendation for preserving naturally occurring affordable housing and missing middle housing. I agree with you. Our two-family housing,
Yeah.
our two-family houses are valuable. And we should take a look at where they are appropriate. And we started looking at that, but I didn't want to go down that road too far in this plan.
Oh, agreed.
But we can make that a recommendation for the future.
Any other comments?
Well, I had a lot of questions and comments, but I think it's probably best to sit down with you than go over,
Yeah.
page by page.
Well, I have to get this done in the next day or two.
Yeah.
So that I have to send it out to the state and to the county by Thursday, so they get it before the public hearing. So this is just the draft. So
Is it sent to them as a draft?
as a draft.
Okay.
Yeah. By law, I have to
So-
give them drafts.
Thank you.
So,
And it needs a good introduction to tell exactly what its
Yeah.
role
Right.
is.
Yep.
and do you want to send out a Word document so we could make comments, or?
No.
Okay.
You can give me comments. I've spent a lot of time making sure I got the figures and the everything in the right location. If I send it out, then things tend to move in Word documents. As you can see, there's a lot of pictures and figures and tables, and things move when you.
Well, I don't mean that. I was kind of thinking about the narrative.
Yeah.
There was some typos, there's some errors in, I think I pointed out to
Well,
you.
you and
That
I,
was-
why don't you and I meet?
Yeah, all right. Mhm.
Okay, we can work this out. Okay?
So the plan is to release this to the public starting
Thursday.
Thursday, essentially?
Yeah.
Um,
It'll be, it's going to be advertised in the Montclair Times on Thursday, so I have to have this available on our website by
Right.
Thursday.
Are
So-
we including some of the suggestions that Mr. Neiman made? Because I thought those were regarding the two-family housing.
In general, not in specific.
Not specific.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although, at the hearing, we can amend
Yeah.
however we'd like. It
I
just,
have
it
to
may
have-
not, it may not meet it may not get there by Thursday of this week,
Yeah.
but it's totally up to this board during the hearing
Right.
to adjust however we see fit.
Absolutely.
And so, May 5th is the hearing. Do we expect that to extend over night or two, or are we looking to, I mean, I would assume in an ideal world, we move the housing element forward that night, but do we have flexibility if we need to extend, or is that kind of one and done, or a special meeting?
No, you can extend it.
Okay.
You can extend it to the May 19th meeting, or you can do a special meeting.
Okay,
You know, it's your plan, and you need to do what you need to do to get it adopted so that you feel comfortable with it.
that's what I wanted everyone to hear.
Is there only one evening planned for the public hearing? Or is there
Correct.
more than one?
There's only one planned right now.
Do you think that's enough? I mean, just because not everybody can make one night, they might be able
I
to
think it
make
depends
another?
on what sort of comments we hear,
Yeah.
what comments this board and what changes this board wants to make.
Yeah.
And if we have to, we'll have to have a special
Okay.
meeting, or try to push off everything from the May
Yeah.
19th meeting to have the housing element hearing continued.
And so when does the council need to do their spending plan?
They only have one meeting in June.
In June, that has to be done?
It'll be at
Okay.
the June meeting.
Yeah, all right.
That's kind of why I wanted to get the planning
Sure.
board through this in
Mhm.
May.
Mr. Neiman?
On the logistics of it, so it goes, public hearing for the planning board, goes to the council needs to adopt it by the end of
The
June.
council doesn't have to.
They don't
adopt the
have to-
plan. All
So-
I need is a resolution, like an endorsing the plan.
Sure.
And the fair share plan.
I guess my question would be, if the council sees it and hears from the public certain things and wants to make an amendment, or kind of disclaim part of it and keep another part of it, are they able to do that, or is it a binary up and down vote from the council?
Well, honestly, they can't change the housing element, but they can change the fair share plan.
Okay. And so there's more opportunities for public comment, because the public would be able to also speak
Yeah.
to the council.
Is that correct, that the council
It's
has a
not a
hearing
pub-
where the public?
It's not a
can-
public hearing.
It's not a public hearing. Okay.
It's
Right.
not a public hearing at the council. All I'm looking for
Yeah.
is a resolution.
So it's a resolution
Correct. Yeah.
with two hearings, or just can vote on it the
Well, you
one?
vote on it
At one,
I
okay.
mean, I know you, in June, you only have one meeting, so it's going to
No,
have to
but
be
if
that
things were
night.
going apace and we were meeting in the end of May, we
Right.
could also look at a resolution.
Yeah.
Just not looking at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
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 Whatever works. I've been very open with these conversations with the council and with the planning board, so that
Yeah.
nobody has any surprises.
Yeah.
If you want to have it at whatever you want me to do at the May meeting, I'll work with you.
We're going to have a public meeting here, right?
Public hearing here, correct.
May
On the
5th.
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 5th of May.
The 19th, the application comes back.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Just one more thing. So Janice, are you going to do a revised narrative and then give it to us prior to the 5th?
No, I can't. I will work, I have to get this done by Thursday. If you want to come to my office and we can
No, but
wordsmith
we had a
it,
lot of discussion here about changing the narrative so that we describe exactly what this is, you know, it's a
You'll get that-
compendium of options
you'll get that on the 5th.
on the 5th.
Yeah, well, you'll get it before the 5th, but you
Yeah,
have to
just-
have faith in me, listening to what you said
Yeah, yeah,
today.
yeah.
I'll
Correct.
revise-
Yes.
I'll revise the plan.
Yes.
Meet with you, Carmel, I know you gave me one number today that was a mistake in here. And we'll get it, I can't send it back to you.
Correct.
And then
Right.
have it ready
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be.
okay.
Okay?
I just want to try and clarify the
Yeah,
procedure.
so, and at the meeting, public hearing on the 5th, if there's anything you want me to change, and we can do it at that meeting,
Okay.
okay?
Correct.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Okay. Do we have any committee reports? Well, I haven't heard any, so do we have any bills?
We do have bills. They're in your packet. Mm-hmm. You should have gotten the bills.
We have bills.
Is there a motion to pay the bills?
You want to see the bills?
Motion, second.
Did I not
Who
put?
moved? I didn't get them electronically, so I don't
Okay,
know.
I'm sorry about that.
I was gonna give them, no, the
Well,
here.
someone moved
And
them,
then
so,
this
right, who
page
moved them?
And that page, yes.
Oh, okay.
And I second it.
And the second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Move to adjourn.
Motion to
Second.
adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
Great
good night,
meeting,
everyone.
great meeting, you too.